Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Can you hear me? Am I
Yes,
audible?
sir.
Yeah, we have around, I think, 25 people. Yeah. I don't know. The admin said that lecture has shifted to 4:30 to 1 o'clock. I don't know whether all the students knows it. By assuming that everybody knows it, we will start the lecture. Right? Class ref is there. Class representative is there. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay. Then we will start, almost 6 minutes past 1 o'clock. Right. For today lecture, I gave two PowerPoint slides. First one is you can see the introductions to macroeconomics and national income accounting. Second one is inflation and unemployment. And in addition to that, I gave some extra readings. One is what we call the two case studies. You have one is C19, COVID-19, and their impact on the especially the challenges, policy response, and outlook. And another case, small case reading, manufacturing to drive growth. That also you can select whatever you like case, and as your normal groups you can do that one. That is actually the summarization, abstract preparation of the abstract out of this one. And in addition to extra readings, I gave two from the central bank latest available literature, central bank annual report. That is mainly the GDP and how the GDP calculated in Sri Lanka. The whatever you learn from the textbooks, how practically applied by the central bank. First one. Second one regarding the wages and prices, especially in inflation and unemployment related to the current situation in Sri Lanka. That is the latest available the information on the Sri Lankan economy. If you have free time, just read it. If you want to read more, so please visit the central bank website. You will find all macroeconomics variables, behavior, their structure, conduct, performance over the years, last 40, 50 years, you will find everything is there, especially even last 74 years, even 73 years, from independence up to now, we have almost all the data with the central bank. Then if anybody want to do research or whatever, you can get all the macroeconomics time series data available with the central bank website, In addition to that, we have a census and statistic department also available, that one. In addition to that, I think I will share what we call this one. I think we have something called this one. Yeah, can you see this one? Can students see this IMF press release?
Yes.
Yeah, then you can see what is the latest situation with respect to Sri Lanka, Then they were saying the unsustainability of our debt situation, Whatever means we may generate the foreign reserves, especially getting loan from other countries, given our assets like lands or strategic locations, But we can temporarily find the solutions, especially importing this necessary, the foodstuffs and, the like other essentials. But that is not going to be a long-term solution, because we have another $1 billion loan we have to pay July somewhere. Already we informed the Chinese we can't pay one other loan. The Chinese are tolerating that. But that is the way it works, Then you see there are highlighting areas, They will mainly say that, the economy has a problem each and every aspects. I'll share this one with you, Then you can read that one and you can see that, what the press release, what the IMF is saying, Earlier, the most of us said to government to go there, but government is very reluctant to go there. But finally, they have to go with a very weaker the bargaining position, Now we don't have anything to demand from them, we are in a weakest position. Whatever they say, we have to accept, They are not saying things to, the kill us, They are saying us to, because that's IMF is we set up mainly to find the solutions to the balance of payments problem, foreign reserve problems. Therefore, we are also member of there and we are also contributing. Then actually we should go a little early, but we were a little late. But anyway, the no harm of again trying, but even if you want to get IMF assistance, it takes another 6-7 months, you can't get it tomorrow. Likewise, you're asking, getting from the neighbors, we don't know what are the conditions and what are the resources and the strategic positions neighbors got for that loan, India gave 1 billion, but they put the conditions, 75% of that money only you can use to get things from the India, Now they are going to open up the what we call online bidding process, then because most of our foodstuffs, medicine, and other oil and other essentials are now coming out of the India. Therefore, we hope that lesser pressure on the dollar. But anyway, dollar is going up today. I heard that one of the exporters said that 295 today. Then all the goods and prices are going up, Then you can see this one. Then this is what we call the IMF press release, and that also you can read. And we'll go to the first part of the lecture, the introductions to macroeconomics and national income accounting. And you can see the objectives of this lecture to give introductions to macroeconomics. Thereafter, to give the basic theoretical foundation of the national income accounting, and thereafter to give a basics about the 3 approaches for national income accounting and the circular flow analysis. There are 3 ways to calculate national income accounting, and the circular flow analysis, not only in the macroeconomics, even very many subjects we use a circular flow analysis. Even in manufacturing, we are heavily using business process. And thereafter, problems, limitations, and usefulness about the national income accounting data. What are the problems with calculations, and what are the limitations in interpretations, and what is the usefulness of, especially the usage of national income accounting data for policy making process and the economic planning, that type of things. And thereafter, to give us some idea about the Sri Lankan national income accounting data, then for that one I gave actually central bank the extra readings, that one. And this is again another notice regarding the 23rd and the 30th April. You have a group assignment presentation. You don't want to come up with the final one, but at least draft one. Then you can come and present the level. I mean the progress of your work. Then everybody can give the suggestions to further improve. Then after that, within 2-3 weeks, you can submit the final version. And you can see the group 10 to 15 minutes presentation time. 7th May, we have a last revision lecture, right? Then today is 9th lecture. We don't have that much lectures, If I give 2 lectures for your presentation, then we have another somewhere around 3 lectures to cover, But very many areas to cover. We'll try to cover as much as, And we'll start with the today lecture. What actually mean a macroeconomics? Then you can see macroeconomics is concerned with the behavior of the economy as a whole. That means overall economy. It is the long run growth and the short run behavior of the economy. That means in macroeconomics, we are studying the business cycles. Economy almost like life, it has a good time, it has a bad time. You can say that today's Sri Lankan situation is a bad time, Sometime maybe 10-20 years ago, we may have good times, If we have bad times, you can see how these macro indicators are behaving. Today inflation is skyrocketing, unemployment is very high, foreign exchange crisis are there, interest rate has problems, all these macro variables, unemployment, inflation, balance of payments, interest rate, you name all these macro indicators are in trouble. There is the bad part of the business cycles. We say there may be sometimes the economic recession. We can identify it as a one word, economic recession. You can see actually it is about behavior of aggregate variables such as the total output of a good and service. That means the GDP. So growth of output, growth of the GDP, the rate of inflation and unemployment, balance of payments, exchange rate, monetary and banking systems. Nowadays, banking system has so much issues. The most of the commercial banks now they say they don't have the reserves, foreign currencies, and even they were saying they don't have even local money, because they say government heavily borrowed money from them. And in addition to that, fiscal policies and the public finance, interest rate, these are the things which mainly we discuss under the macroeconomics. Their behavior, their structure, conduct, performance, and their behavior. If they are in a bad shape, how can we put them into the right track? Economists are there to advise, especially the international financial institution like World Bank, IMF, Asian Development Bank are there. In addition to that, locally we have, Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Treasury, Planning Ministry, independent economies, university economies, and things like, policy making area, if things are bad, we can get the advice, they will say, you do this one within the short and the medium and the long term, you can again back into business, that's so simple. Then you can see macroeconomics has a policy part also, not only the theoretical part, it has a more practical part, they are asking questions, same time they are giving solution also, because some people are only asking questions, but no solution, macroeconomics has a both raising questions and giving answers also. Then this mainly concern about what are the right policies to change aggregate macro variables and how policy changes will affect for the macro variables. The most interesting part may be policy area. It is really an application. If we ask from the independent economists, they will say what are the solutions to the current Sri Lankan hard currency problem, Then sometimes some people say, whoever come now, you can't save the Sri Lankan economy. It will end up with a disaster. That may be very extreme review, Let's see that you can see it is really an applications of the macroeconomic theory. Macroeconomics also use abstraction-based modeling to simplify the complex macro reality. That means it has a modeling theoretical, that part also there, not only the policy part. Then you can see two macro policy tasks, analysis of causes of change of the macro variables. The first one is a analysis of causes of change. Nowadays, you can say that we don't have enough dollars. That is our main problem. Then the economists advise into how can we improve the stock of these dollars. There are very many short term, medium term, long term, I don't know whether the government is going to listen or not. Some governments are listening, some are listening fully, some are partly, some may don't care at all. Then another one, the predict consequences of the policy changes on the macro variables. Sometimes we will say, nowadays the government allow the free floating of the foreign exchange. Government feel that, they temporarily it will go up, but in a medium and the long term, it will pick up. And, the dollar rate will come to the very stable one. Thereafter, we can build a more foreign reserve. There's the one is schools views, other schools views, they say it's too late us to do it. Even now, if we do that one, it should link with other macro variables, because macroeconomic variables are linked to each other. You can't only treat single variable, because it interlinked to the other variables. If we want to float your foreign exchange, then you have to link with the interest rate. If you want to like a 240 or 260, if you want to put that one, your interest rate should be over 15%. But interest rate is lower than that. Then the economy can going to be messed. But there are so many disagreements, because economists are belong to the various schools. In the very first lecture, I said, person coming from London School of Economics, their views is different from the person coming from the Harvard Business Schools. And that's normal. They are belong to different schools. Then economists are always disagree. There's a nature of the economics. Then you can see the macro subjects matter is very important for everybody. Because macro directly affect for us. Because if whenever you go to buy something, prices are going up. Then today I heard that the milk powder price 1 kilo going to be over 2,000. The problem is how the poor people, poor kids in this country should drink a milk. You don't drink, you don't become healthy. Maybe hygiene, health. That way you can see the whenever you go to market, you feel it. Microeconomic maybe not that much feeling. Microeconomic subjects matter, but macroeconomic directly affect. Whenever you want to travel abroad, you need dollars. But whenever you want to buy the dollar is not available. Then it affects life and welfare for people. Then always it affects. If you go to rural Sri Lanka, you will see the prices of the essential goods are rocketing. The poor people can't afford it. Most people, they don't have fixed income, or maybe they don't have income at all. Sometimes they completely depend on the government welfare system. The media attentions, media always reporting. Whenever you see the television, you can see half of the news about the macroeconomics variables. And whenever you go to any site, website, you will see social media, mainly attention macro variables. Nowadays, mainly the economy will collapse, and, people are pricing and the foreign exchange problems. And the center of political debate also, political parties are attacking to each other by using macro indicators. They will say, look, during your time, this is inflation. During our time, this is inflation. That way. Thereafter, productivity measurement for the ruling party also. They can easily say, see that our government is a very productive, because during our times inflation is a very low, unemployment is a very low, GDP growth is a very high, and interest rate is a very low. Everybody has a very good life. Everybody is happy. Things like, therefore macro variables are more or less the productivity measurement for the ruling party. And there are considerable disagreement exists among the economists on this area because economists never agree with each other. If you ask from the independent economist about the Sri Lankan current problems, he will say a lot of things. If you ask from the political party, the aligned economists, they will say everything is end. If you ask from the ruling party back in the economists, they will say, no, this is only temporary things. We have only dollar problems. These things will go away within next, India gave already money. Then the next 2 months, no problems. Don't think too much long, as your finance minister said, within maybe the next 2-3 months, we will find somewhere, like a Singapore model, Singapore, I think they sold out most of their lands to foreigners, Therefore, they raised the money, they were saying land is there, the foreigners can't go with the lands, they have to come and develop it, Then there are so many views regarding that one. Then you can see the macroeconomists are always disagree with each other because they belong to the different political, the parties, so maybe different schools. Then you can see the main theme in macroeconomics. This is a business cycle. You can see on the one hand time, on the other hand output. You can take a Sri Lankan data from 1948 up to now. You can regress and you can see that this is the way it works. Economy almost like life. You have a good time, you have a bad time. Again, you have a good time. Again, that's the way economy is working. But trend line, you can see it has a trend, is a very positive increasing. This is the one, the economist's duty is to make sure that the trend line should be get in this way. Then you can see you have peak situation, you have trough situation, you have recession, you have recovery. Then Sri Lanka somewhere here now, almost all the dollars are over now. People are in the queue, essential things are not available. Even now Colombo is facing this one, rural Sri Lanka also facing. Then you can see sometime we maybe once the Indian 1 billion came, now we may have little recovery. But again, we can go again, we can come down somewhere around July, that is the way economy is working. Then we don't want to worry that one. This is actual output, actual output like life, good time, bad time. And this is a potential output, but potential output is increasing. If you see the IMF, that brief, they will say that this year also we can expect, 2.6 growth. But last year we had a minus, that's good, but the last year, because the 2 years we almost closed, the lockdown happened, and due to that one, economy squish, it did not expand. Therefore, according to modern monetary theory, you can print money to a certain extent, then the economy will pick up. But if you pass the limit, you are in trouble. Now it happened, now our limit has gone. Now, if you print a new money, only the inflation is going up. Productive sector is not responding, real sector is not responding. Even though there's no any other solution, government is printing money, then what is happening? The large amount of money is chasing a small amount of good and services. Naturally, according to supply demand, prices are skyrocketing. That is the thing now happening in Sri Lanka, Same time, most of the things we import, whenever we import, dollar prices are going up, according to current the exchange rate determination. Then what is going to happen? Whenever you import things, it will be very costly, Therefore, we hope that according to the Marshall Learned condition, naturally import will discourage. And export will go up, because whenever you earn $1, you are cashing it, then you get a more Sri Lankan rupees. Then the people have a natural tendency to grow the export and to decrease the import. That is a basic idea, but it depends on the elasticity approach, Marshall Learned conditions, what type of product we export, what type of product we import, That is a big area to discuss. Then you can see that the main theme in macroeconomics is studying the business cycles. During the peak time, what is going to happen for unemployment, inflation rate, interest rate, balance of payment, foreign reserves, During the bad time, what is going to happen, Economist's duty is to help to put economy into right tracks. This is a trend line, is a right track. Economy always behave this way. Then you can see the why do we have to estimate national income accounting? Because this is a very costly exercise. You need an expert, professional to do that one. We have a central bank separate department, and we have a census and statistic department. We have the separate section for a national income accounting. Then you can see why do we have to estimate national income accounting? First reason, it provides a formal structure for most of the macroeconomics models and the theories. If you want to do economic planning, economic forecasting, economic modeling, if you want to put your economy into the long-term right directions, annual planning, 2-3 years, so midterm, more long-term, you need the good hard data, the national income accounting framework provide that database, especially now in the world, what we call the measurement culture we are living, the big data culture, everything we have to measure, otherwise people don't trust you. Therefore, this national income accounting framework give the necessary data framework. All the quantifiable data is given. Other one, to provide reasonably accurate numbers. They are not 100% accurate, but it's better to have something, not rather having anything, then therefore it's reasonably 100% maybe not accurate. If we do get our production, sometimes it has a multiple counting error, same thing we are counting 2-3 times. Then sometimes GDP seems like going up, but actually it didn't go up. Actually, what we did, the measurement errors. You take a rubber latex level, we are counting. Again, the sheet level, 3-4 sheet level we are getting. Again, whenever we produce bags or shoes, again we are counting. Then you can see same amount of rubber, we are counting 3 times. Then that type of things are there, problem. Sometimes maybe if your economy is more informal, in village level, they don't keep any records. Then most of the things we can't measure. And therefore we can say the provide reasonably accurate numbers about the overview, but they are not 100% perfect. Provide something to compare economy with other economies. Not only us, even India is doing that way. Norway is doing, UK doing, the United Nations has some framework, they have they gave the standards us to follow. If you are a member of the United Nations, you have to calculate national income accounting, but they are giving all this framework. Everybody is following the same framework, same methodology. Then we can easily compare with, if your GDP or GDP per capita is low, we can say your country is a poor country because your GDP per capita is low. If it is a middle level, you can say your lower level middle income, your upper level middle income, your developed economy. Then this is the one, we mainly use a GDP and GDP per capita related to various measures to compare countries, your country developed or underdeveloped or middle level country or high income country. Then you can see in overall, it is the internationally accepted coherent and comprehensive database on the country's economic structure, conduct and the performance. If you go to any country, if you are a member of the United Nations, you have this database. Then sometimes government want to hide the inflation, but they can't hide because this GDP data how to get it. Then that way you can see any country you have internationally accepted data framework. Sometimes maybe deep interior of Africa you may don't have data, but you have national income accounting data. Then you can easily find most of the macroeconomic data for your work. Then you can see importance of the national income accounting data. Then the estimate on national accounts comments with the necessity of assessing the economic progress of a country during the given period. If you want to measure your economy is a grow or not, the economic growth mainly we measure through the what we call the GDP growth, and the economic development, how do you share it? You divide from the number of media population, then you can see that the person from the population, how much they are consuming. You take the Norway GDP and the Indian GDP, both are same. But once you divide from the population, Indian GDP has gone. Indian GDP, maybe the GDP per capita somewhere around $600-700 US. Then there is a population is a problem for India. Huge population will completely get you out from the developed stage. Then you can see if you want to check any country's economic progress, you have to have this framework. And this monetary estimate provides a systematic summary of all economic transactions in the country with a relevant sectoral breakdown. You can find, agriculture, industry, services, non-classified sectors, even within agriculture, country like Sri Lanka, you have plantation crops, domestic subsidiary crops and others, and, even the mine export crops, that way so many categorization you will find. Then you can easily find what is the contribution of the tea producing sector, even the large scale tea, medium scale, smaller scale, that way you can find various breakdowns, then that is the beauty of it, the systematic summary of all economic transactions within a year, you will see the very structured manner. They form the basis for identifying development in various sectors of the economy and formulation of appropriate future policy measures while facilitating comparison between economies. Then you have this one, then you can do very many modeling, economic planning, economic programming, and nowadays you can see that Sri Lankan situation, we have to do very good planning, short-term planning, medium-term and long-term planning. Thereafter, we have to get a various policy prescriptions. Then we can again back into business. This is the thing what the IMF is doing. IMF come in and study in our situation. They first find we have a serious problem with the the foreign debt side, our debts are not sustainable because principals and the interest payments are very high. We have to service very many debts during this year, very many milestone. Then whatever the reserves we generated, we have problems. We can maybe do the day-to-day functions like importing and consumption we can do. But the problem is whenever we want to pay the debt, we are in trouble. All the currencies will drain. Then that way they will find what we can do it, how can we rebuild our foreign reserves. Then by look at the GDP data, they will start working. Then they will see that, we can renegotiate the debt with sometimes some of the debt they did not invest rightly, then they have to build the assets for that one. Chinese government also recently said the whatever debt they gave, and we did not build the assets out of that one. For instance, if they gave $1 billion plus, the $1 billion assets should be here. They should build, but that didn't happen, because maybe we have a serious problem with the governance. IMF come and say, so we have a serious problem with the corruption, governance, bad management, nepotism, and all these human evils are there, then you can't never ever run your economy, but if you go for the commercial loan, like the most of the government, they are very reluctant to go to IMF because IMF and the host government doesn't have any personal issues. IMF is a very professional organization. They come and say that if you want to get back things into right tracks, you got to do these things. They may be politically they are very unpopular. They will say in Sri Lankan case, all the 17 loss-making state institutions should be the restructure. Either they should give to the private sector, like Air Lanka, like a oil company, like electricity board, railway, and things like, they identify 17 organizations which make huge losses. Then we have to restructure. But these 17 organizations are giving a good money to the politicians and the government officers. Therefore they never want to restructure. Another one, whenever you get a loan from the IMF, they don't pay commissions. But if you do get it from other parties, the sovereignty bond, or maybe the other Chinese government or any other government, there are a lot of deals are going on. But that may be another reasons they don't want to go. But there are so many reasons, if you read the media, some may be true, some may be false. But as a scientist, you can easily identify what is the right professionalism. IMF, we set up to find a solutions to this type of foreign exchange problem, because we are also a member of that, They are saying that don't give anything free, at least recover cost, But if you do get our free education, some of the parents can pay actually, in our engineering faculty or maybe medical faculty or IT faculty or architecture, I'm quite sure 40 to 50% of the students, mothers, fathers are very rich people, government officers, they can easily pay for their kids' education, Why don't we charge from them and give free to others? Then that way, we have to rationalize this, whatever the free things we are giving. But that is not happening, We do get our Samruddhi benefits, more than 40, 50% people are taking Samruddhi. They are very big business people, Yeah, that way, we have to rationalize. These are the things what IMF is saying, nothing else, the government sector inside, there are a lot of, wastage, corruption, bad management, and things like, we have to reduce it. IMF coming and saying that, then politicians and the government officers they don't like it. In that way, the IMF and the Sri Lanka government doesn't have any personal problem, but some of the temporary measures may be very painful, but if you want to get back into the right tracks, you have to accept that. Then you can see all these policy measures and, comparison between countries. We can do everything, all the macroeconomic modeling, planning, advising, prescription. If you want to do, you need a very good database. You have to see what is the current situation. This is available with the national income accounting framework. When nowadays anybody come, they have to first study this, whatever the available macroeconomic framework or database. Then that is available with the national income accounting framework. That is why this is very useful, that one. Otherwise, they have to come and do and collect. That is not going to be easy. Then you can see the importance milestone of national income accounting. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. We can hear you. Yeah, then we were just discussing something. If anybody has a questions, you can ask, Otherwise, we will discuss in a question in time, because today we are discussing a very hot topic, all of us feel in that one, And the important milestone of national income accounting, this process of compiling national income account statistic was formalized by the United Nations Organization, UNO, with the publication of the measurement of national income and the construction of social account in 1947. 1947 report. That means we got independent 1948. That is why you can say Sri Lanka is like a data lab, from 1948 up to now, we have all the data, the most of the researchers, most of the research universities, they are selecting Sri Lanka as a lab because we have some of the data, world first class data, like demographic data. Each 10 years we are collecting industry census data and the national income accounting data because we have very clean data. British really, create that foundation, even during the British colonial time also for tax proposals, they set up this data collection method. They are after independence. We are following that one. We have a separate organization, ministries, department to do that. Then you can see we start 1947 UN report. The United Nations published a more comprehensive set of standard accounts and table in 1953 term the system of national accounting. That means 1953 standard national accounting, SNA. Everybody know what is the 1953 SNA. Where widely applicable concepts and definitions were presented, because if you are a member of the United Nations, you have to calculate GDP, GNP. UN has the National Income Accounting Office. They take the census and the statistic department people and the central bank people, and annually they are giving training, 2 weeks, 1 week, they are going to the Geneva or somewhere, they are getting training, whenever the new methodology develops, we are giving training, our people are getting training. We are following that methodology. In addition, taking into account country experiences, when implementing the 1953 standard national accounting, the revised version was issued in 1960s. Then you can see 47 started, 53, there are some restructuring happened. Thereafter, 60s again, in addition to taking into account country experience, different countries have a different economic structure, formal, informal, and things like a different development stage. In 1960, they did some revisions, and that way you can see this was followed by the 1964 revision of the standard national accounting, which improved its consistency with the balance of payment manual of the International Monetary Fund. Then you can see if you want to talk about the balance of payment, IMF is the right place. If you don't have IMF seal, no country, no person want to invest in your country, IMF seal matters, that is why everybody is advising to the most of the government who face a problem, go to the IMF and get their seals, Then the IMF seal, people like to come and give money to you, because then they know you have some policies there, In the 1968, you can say standard national accounting expanded the horizon of national accounts compilation by including input-output tables and the balance sheets, and increase imports in the estimated and constant price. So far, we calculate the current prices because it has an inflationary impact. If you want to remove that one, we came with the constant prices. Then you can see 64, some revision happened. In the 68, another expansion happened. Then again, the 1993 standard national accounting was noteworthy leap in the national account statistic as it broadly complemented with other international statistical standards. That means there are international statistical standards available like accounting standards. Then they're trying to, in 1993, they are trying to comply with the internationally available statistical standard. The latest of the series, 2018 Standard National Account, is an updated version of 1993 SNA, which addresses development brought about by changes in the economic environment, advances in methodological research, and the user requirement. That means the environmental impact of the, what are the damage people made to environment, we want to deduct from the national income accounting. Then you can see in 2015, many changes happen. Then you can see time, a lot of changes happening. Then our people are going and get the training, and we are changing our methodology, data collection methods. We are adding more things there, and we are, deleting some of the unnecessary things. Then you can see the major changes related to national accounting compilation in Sri Lanka. That is international things. So far we discussed revising the base year to 2010. Earlier 2001 we were using, but 2010 now we are using. The broadening the coverage of GDP by capturing almost all the economic activities of the country in accordance with the International Standard Industrial Classification Revision 4. We say ISIC Revision 4. And presenting GDP under new 5 sectoral classifications: financial sector, non-financial sector, general government sector, household sector, and not profit institutes serving household. Then estimating quarterly GDP under the expenditure approach, publishing annual GDP under the income approach, simultaneous to the production and expenditure approach. That means the GDP data now we are presenting income, expenditure, production, these 3 ways. If you see the central bank, the extra readings I give, you can see the central bank is reporting. We have a very nice pictures. They are showing that according to these 3 methods, the Sri Lanka also now calculate. Earlier we do only the production, but now we go for expenditure and the income also. But income is sometimes maybe difficult. People never say their income. Most of the things happening without documenting, without recording. In Sri Lanka, we don't have the universal, what we call the social security number systems. Many countries you have that one. Your payment, everything happening through that number. But here we don't have that. Therefore, professionals like accountant, the IT guys, doctors, lawyers, they earn as much as. Therefore, income may be not right. Production is a very right one us too. And the expenditure also. People never say how much they spend in their money. That also has a problem because we don't have that recording systems. Estimating GDP under production approach using the concept of basic pricing. Then you can see in Sri Lanka also a lot of things are happening regarding that one. Then you can see what national income account actually consists. The annual accounts and the 5-year to 10-year long-term account. Annual account each year they are providing, government is providing, central bank providing, and thereafter that is adjusted by the census and statistics. Then annual accounts provide GDP, GNP. GDP means gross domestic production. GNP means the gross national product. Whatever we domestically produce, we say domestic GDP, but we adjust to the whatever we do with the other countries. Then sometimes we pay money to them, they pay money to us. We adjust whatever available money with the GDP, then the GNP will come. Sometimes GNP is less or more than to GDP. It can happen. GDP always say what is happening inside your country. GNP says the what you do with other countries in internationally what you do. Then both are important for policy making. Then we can measure the GDP, GNP at a current and the constant factor cost with the industrial origin, and the expenditure also GNP at a current and the constant market prices. GDP implicit deflator, a measure of inflation. If you don't have any inflation, many African countries, they don't measure the inflation, Latin America, because it's a very high politically problems. But if you do have a GDP data, you can easily find what is your inflation rate. The estimate of gross domestic fixed capital formation by industrial origin at current and the constant market prices in respect of private and the public sectors and the general government. Even Sri Lanka, you can get the data with respect to the provincial council, municipality level, and the composition of the gross fixed capital formation by capital assets and sectors of origin in respect to private, public sectors and the general governments. Composition of the general government, current consumption, expenditure by functional economic heads. All these things available with the handout I gave to you to read as extra handouts. And the 5 to 10 year long-term accounts provide basis for input-output table, what we call the inter-industry table, supply and the use matrices we can prepare, inter-industry flow matrix we can prepare, direct and total requirement coefficient matrices we can prepare. Then we can do the institutional sector accounts. That means the non-financial enterprises, financial institutions, general government, household, and the unincorporated enterprises, flow of funds accounts, rest of the world accounts. Then you can see institutional sector accounts, 5 to 10 years. This is very good for economic planning, economic policy making, economic policy prescriptions. Another one, the social accounting metrics, aggregated social accounting metrics. Even we do the CGM modeling, we do it under the CGM modeling. You can say, if a government is spending 1 rupee, what is their impact for a deeper interior of the Monragala, one household in a rural deeper interior of the Monragala. That way, because nowadays the software available, a lot of modeling available. That way we can calculate even the elasticity calibrators, multipliers, Now GDP, more or less, the national income account is a heavily quantitative, data analytics business now. Now we can go for the basic concepts in a national income accounting. That is a gross domestic production. So far we said what is a GDP and the gross national product. Sometimes in examination we are asking distinguish difference between the GDP and the GNP. Then you can see GDP is the value of all final goods and services produced in the economy in a given time period, normally for a year. To convert GDP into GNP, it is necessary to add income received by domestic resident from assets owned abroad and to subtract income paid out to non-residents who own assets in the country. That means the difference between the GDP and GNP is the net factor income from abroad. We are adjusting that one with the GDP, then we get a GNP. Sometimes, some years the GDP is more than the GNP, some years other way around, that one. And thereafter you can say the nominal or current GDP and the real or constant GDP. The nominal one, it has inflation, constant one we are removing. Constant one is the very good one. It says the real growth of the real sector, Nominal GDP is the output of a currently produced goods and services evaluated at the current market prices. So in the current, the Sri Lankan rupees terms, since GDP is the rupee value of goods and services measured in price unit, as price changes, GDP change without any change in the production in the economy. Sometimes coconut production can go down, but due to the price increase, we report it as a coconut production has gone up. Actually, it didn't go up, only the price increases. Therefore, constant, the values are very important. Whenever you get a data, you have to see that is a current data or constant. Always look for constant data. It says the real growth in the sector. The adjustment of nominal GDP for the effect of changes in price level or inflation result in real GDP. That means by deflating the nominal GDP, you can obtain the real GDP. The GDP deflate are the one. If you don't have any indicator to measure inflation, you have a GDP deflate. If you have a GDP data, you can easily find it. The ratio of nominal GDP to real GDP is just the ratio of the current price level of the good and services related to the price level in the base year. You can easily find inflation in your country. Another one, the GDP and the NDP, net domestic production. Then you can see GDP minus depreciations. Then whatever capital you consume, you are doing the depreciation, then you get the net domestic production. This is total value of production minus the value of the amount of the capital use up in the production producing that output. Then you have another concept, national income. National income means the net domestic production minus indirect taxes. That way you have, there are 24 verifications, manipulations you can obtain from the GDP data. All these available in the handouts I gave you to read. Then thereafter we can go to the measurement of GDP. As I said earlier, there are 3 ways to measure the GDP. Then the sum of value added by all producers, what we call the production approach. Country like Sri Lanka, this may be ideal, but that also has a problem, Same production, likewise earlier rubber case, you can see we are counting, multiple counting errors can happen, Sometimes we don't count at all. The income claims generated by the total production, that means income approach. The handouts I gave, you have very nice diagrams, pictures there. And the expenditure needed to purchase all final goods and services produced, what we call the expenditure approach. These are the 3 approaches. Identically, all these answers should be equal. If a production system come 100, it should be equal to the income approach. It should be equal to the expenditure approach. That is what we call we are using the circular flow to show that one. This is from the central bank report. You can see snapshot of national output, expenditure and income and the employment in Sri Lanka. You can see these are production approach situations. You have agriculture, industry, service sectors. Then you can see in Sri Lankan situation, if you do get a 2020 situations, then this is the latest data available. 21 report is still come with the end of the April. Then you can see agriculture contributed to the GDP only 7%, industry 25.5%, and the service almost 59%, 58.7%. Then you can see our economy is service-oriented economy, Sri Lanka, agriculture only contributing 7%, but you have to see that, the employment-wise. If you say the majority of people are employed in agriculture, then agriculture has a problem with the productivity, Agriculture contributes 7% of the GDP, but the employed population 60% in agriculture. Then we have to take agriculture people out, mechanizing and digitizing and in productivity improvement to the agriculture. And these people we can put into the industry and services, because agriculture has a lot of problems with the productivity. And we have the expenditure approach, and thereafter you have income approach, but this is the most reliable one. But we are calculating according to all these things. All these 3 approaches we are calculating, and that is available in your central bank annual report. And these are the further explanation of what is the production approach, what is the income or cost approach, what is the expenditure approach. Anybody interest, you can read that. You don't want to worry about how to calculate that one. And why 3 methods? Because even the single method, you need a lot of people to do that one. It's a costing exercise. You have to calculate everything. What is happening in our class, this online class, the central bank is reporting. Because I'm paid, and you have paid money to the university, and everything recorded. Then the central bank is reporting. Some people are driving buses. Some are issuing tickets, some are traveling. Everything we are recording. Recording, and annually central bank is calculating. They have a lot of estimation methods. They have data collections, on behalf of the central bank. Gram Sevakers are collecting data, and Census and Statistics Department has a station or statistical officers to collect data. Then you can see why 3 methods to improve the accuracy. Answers should be identical. If a production come in 100, it should be equal to the income. It should be equal to the expenditure. To improve the accuracy, various methods are given, various information for policy making and analysis. To select the most suited methods by looking at the country's situation. And sometimes some researchers like to go for a production data. Some like to go for income data. Some like to go for expenditure. It depends on what you want to do. the objectives of the study. Another one, the circular flow of income. Then you can see the process that determine national income and the national output. The simultaneously can be represented by the diagram illustrating the circular flow of expenditure and income. You have a simple circular flow model and the complete circular flow model. Simple circular flow model, you don't have foreign sector. You do everything inside your country. But in complete circular flow model, there's something going out from the systems, especially you do export, you do import, and some people are coming and investing. Foreign direct investments are there, foreign loans are there, foreign aids are there. Everything we are put in. The practical situation is a complete circular flow model. But maybe centuries ago, maybe the 10 centuries ago, simple circular flow model may be working. But today is a complete circular flow model is applicable to explain the macroeconomic situation. Then you can see the simple circular flow. You have a household on the one hand, on the other hand, firms. Then you can see household supply factors of productions to firm, but using that one, the factors using these factors of production, the firms are manufacturing goods and services. For the supply of factors of production, the firms are paying some payments to the household. By using the household has a money because they pay for the supply of the factors of production. This money they don't save or they don't invest somewhere. They spend all this money as expenditure to buy these goods and services they produce. Then you can see here no injections, no investment or no export or and the leakages or not. Then you can see therefore production no value added should be equal to expenditure, and that should be equal to income because no hiding, nothing coming out from the system, nothing going out from the systems. Then there are no leakage or no injections. There is a simple circular flow situations. And this is a simple economy. We can give a simple mathematics later on too. And we can go for a very complex situations. We can get a multipliers, accelerators, calibrators, and things like, nowadays the subjects become heavily mathematical. And you can see the y equals c plus I, the value of output equal to consumption plus investment spending. Then relations among the saving, consumption, and GDP. Then that way you can do a lot of manipulations out of that one, components of the demands, and you have allocations of the income. Then you can see output produced is equal to output sold. The value of output produced is equal to income received. Income received is spent on the good or saved. That means the identical answers you can find according to these three. Relations between the savings and investment. In a simple economy, there's no government involvement and no foreign trade. Then the identity is working there. Then you can see complete circular model. The government is coming and the foreign sector is coming, export is coming, the investment is coming, import is coming, and the factor incomes going as the savings. Then you can see all complex situation. If the government is there, they are spending money, they are getting tax incomes, they are paying transfer payments, and the household. Then you can see the overall Sri Lankan economy. You can model it, There we can give a little mathematics there, Then we can easily find what are the accelerators, multipliers, calibrators, and excuse me. If you spend 1 rupee, what is going to happen? Somewhere all these things we can calculate. Then we can introduce a simple equations. Y equals c plus I plus g plus nx. Then here your income or your output equal to your consumption, your investment, the government role, and the net export. Then you can see government purchase of goods and services, and thereafter you can see all taxes government include and transfers government do. Then the y become yd because yd is a y plus. That y means this one plus tr plus ta. Then TA means taxes, whatever government taking. TR means government adding a lot of services to, free education, free health, and law and order, a lot of transfers, and then you can see the disposable income is allocated to consumption. The same is that way economists can go into ND, they can analyze very many things by using this identity. Then you can see the combined identity. It is, you can see C plus S equal to YD, disposable income, that is this way and this way. Then you can see very many verifications. You get this one, what we call the important one, savings investment gap. S minus I equal to G plus TR minus TA plus NX. And using this identity, we can explain the relations between the savings and investment gap, government budget deficits, and the trade balance. Then nowadays, this may be very important to analyze the Sri Lankan situations. And thereafter, each component we can take and we can analyze, like a component of aggregate demand, consumption is spending by household, and the investment is spending I, and the government G, NX. Then you can see the identity as a number 3, this one. This we can say complete Sri Lankan, all the what is happening transaction, we can report this way by using that equations. And thereafter in your textbooks, we have a USA situations. If economy is growing with the consumption, that may be not a long-term good solutions. Even the government expenditure not good, but investment and export through, if the economy is growing, that is a very good, more sustainable way to grow your economy. Based on that one, you can say a lot of policy things, Here also you can see that, by using that identity, the economists can say a lot. What is the right tax to charge? What is the right things to import and export and things like, And the same way we can go to the price indexes. Then you can see no single price index is perfect. Three main price indexes are GDP deflator. You already know the price index are mainly we used to report the price increases in the market. And you have consumer price index, you have producer price index, and the GDP deflator means it is the ratio of nominal GDP in a given year to real GDP of that year. The consumer price index, the CPI, in Sri Lanka, you have what we call the Colombo Consumer Price Index. The CPI measures the cost of buying a fixed basket of goods and services representative of the purchase of urban consumers. In Sri Lanka, you have plenty of price indices. Then you can see how cost of living, that means CPI differ from the GDP deflator. GDP deflator measures the prices of a much wider group of goods than the CPI does. CPI measures the cost of a given basket of goods, which is the same from year to year. The basket of goods included in the GDP deflator differs from year to year depending on what is produced in the economy in each year. CPI directly includes prices of imports. The deflator includes only prices of goods produced in the domestic economy. You can see the difference. The other one, the producer price index. This also measures cost of a given basket of goods, but its coverage is wider. The producer price index includes raw materials and semi-finished good as well. This is an early stage of price measurement, especially at farm gate level prices. Then you can see there are three price indices. And thereafter, the estimation of the GDP, GNP under the United Nations Standard National Accounting Classification. All the countries should follow these classifications. You have agriculture, forestry, and fishing. In the handout I gave, you have all these the classifications, categorization, everything there, mining and quarrying. Then you can see these are the primary sectors, 1 and 2. They have the manufacturing, construction, electricity, gas, water, sanitary, transport, storage and communication, wholesale, retail trade, banking, insurance, real estate, ownership of dwellings, public administration, defense, other services. Then you can see adding all these things, you have a primary, industry and the services, and then the GDP. Then the GDP, we adjust to the net factor income from abroad, then we get a GNP. This is the way we do it. All the countries are doing that way. Then we can easily compare and then we can rank the countries. Problems of measuring GDP, GNP, there are a lot of problems, and the what goods and services are to be included. In some countries include some may don't, but UN has some prescriptions, to include which one, but new products are coming always, and the which stage of production should be included, farm gate level, low final marketplace, so consumers, doorstep, when they were included, and the exclusion of non-productive transactions, and the exclusion of non-market and illegal activities and do-it-yourself activities, and the product quality improvements are not accounted. Environmental damage is not accounted in many developing part of the world, but in Norwegian countries, especially in Canada also nowadays, they are preparing a green account. Whatever damage you made to the environment, they are deducting. Then in Sri Lanka also, I think central bank has some project, still the project level that is going. Then limitation of GDP per capita as a measurement of economic development. Then you can see in Sri Lankan GDP, you divide and now we are almost close to the 4,000. It does not show the distribution of income. We can't give a guarantee everybody is going to get such a GDP per capita income. Problems with measurement, undervaluation, overvaluation, and therefore we can't trust it as an economic development measurement indicator. Therefore, we are using so many other indicators like a physical quality of life index, human development index, gender-related measures we are using, empowerment measurements, nutrition and health measures, various other things, number of people have television sets, and the cars, type of cars, and the floor, roof, and things like, the schools, number of doctors, number of nurses, number of health workers, number of teachers, number of universities, and, because we can't trust GDP as the only indicator to show the economic development. We are using the wider variety of indicators. Day and night, new things are coming. Then you can see this is all about the macroeconomics. We are studying the business cycle. And the country classifications, you can see low income countries, the GNP per capita $755 US, middle income, then Sri Lanka almost higher middle income country status now. But even though now we have serious problems with the foreign reserve for whatever reasons, and the higher income countries, you can see that, then our idea is to reach there, but we were not moving from there. Now many years we were in a higher or low middle income country, but we need a big gap. Many countries face that problem. Malaysia has the problems. We need a big push to go into the higher middle income country. Somewhere, that we were trapping there. Then we need a big push there. There are a lot of theories available in economics to find that big push. Another one, the economic growth. Then you can see aggregate output growth. That means the real, excuse me, give me 1 second. I will come back. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
And this one, the economic growth, then you can see how do you measure the economic growth? Economic growth means aggregate output growth. That means real GDP growth. Output growth equal labor share multiplied labor growth plus capital share multiplied capital growth plus technical progress. So this thing what we are learning as a management of technology graduates, technical progress and the labor share multiplied the labor growth, capital share multiplied from the capital growth plus technical progress. You can see this equation shows growth of output mainly due to the input growth and the improved productivity of technical progress. Then you can see how the Korea captured maybe the USA within 10 years, maybe Japan captured the USA economic growth within 10 years. These are reasons, output growth, then the output mainly due to the input growth and the improved productivity or technical progress. And another one, the real GDP per capita growth. Then the per capita output growth equal capital share multiplied capital labor ratio plus technical progress. Here also you can say capital share multiplied by the capital labor ratios. This equation shows growth of GDP per capita depends on availability of capital per labor and technical progress. You can say in our case, country like Sri Lanka, we don't have enough capital. Then our productivity is going down. If you do get our engineers, the capital they use may be very less compared with the Korean engineer or maybe Japanese engineer. That is why our productivity is low. And another one, the technical progress. We may don't have technical progress at all. We are importing all the technologies, and sometimes maybe, as your assignment says, most of the technologies which we develop, we ignored. Indigenous technologies we never develop as appropriate technologies. Then you can see these two equations are saying the aggregate output growth depend on these factors and the real GDP per capita growth depend on that one. Both the equations you can see technical progress and the factor productivity and the share of the inputs are very important. These are the three indicators. We don't have these things. That is why we are poor. We can't get our economic growth. And the factors for economic growth, what are the factors we affecting for economic growth? First, on the capital accumulations, you have to have savings and investment. A country like Sri Lanka, our savings are very low. If you read the handouts I gave today in national income accounting, you will see our savings. Government can't save, household can't save, private sector can't save, and if there's no savings, no investment, then capital accumulation is a very low in country like Sri Lanka. Last 74 years we were trying to do it, but didn't pick up. People's savings less than 8%. But in some countries like Taiwan, Japan, Korea, you can see over 90% people savings, because their income also high and the cost of living also very low. And the technical progress or total factor productivity, and if you can improve your technical progress or total factor productivity, whatever means your economy can grow. And another one, the natural resources, put in more lands into business and the discovery and development of the natural gas, oil, minerals, and limit of natural resources for growth. There are a lot of theories available in environmental economics. They will explain. And the human capital, investing on the people. Then the most of the 5 countries, all these the what we call the Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, they are heavily investing on the people, especially science and technology education, STM tech, education and, the human capital. In country like Sri Lanka, we were not doing it. India also heavily investing on the youth, therefore investing on the people matters and the other factors like a good governance, the weather, if the rain come on time, monsoon come on time, farmers have a good the yield to report, then the weather directly affect for your economic growth and the progressive thinking, people should think about, we want to develop whatever means our country. And nowadays you can see all our, professionals and, the whoever the young people, they are leaving the country, they feel that, there's no future in the country and things like, but that is not the right progressive thinking. Progressive thinking is whatever problem comes, whatever politicians do, you will oppose for that one. You have to develop your own country. The many countries, they like their countries. Their rulers like their country and their people. But progressive thinking and the population growth also. Sometimes if you have too much population growth, it can create problem for your economic growth. Especially the India has this problem. Bangladesh has this problem. Some people say other way around also, the main attraction of the foreign investment is a population, foreign companies because of the cheaper labor and the skilled labor immigration, Canada, or maybe the New Zealand, or maybe Australian economic growth, we can easily explain because all the cream of the world are going to that part of the world, whatever we produce during the last 74 years by our university systems, all the good people are now left to country, they are the guys who, more or less help in other countries to get their development, Sometimes maybe in Sri Lankan case, you can do as a case study, the most able, good, skillful people left the country, the first start in 1956, I guess, 56, 58, due to whatever the racial riots, the main language became singular by the politicians, all these Burgher communities and, Portuguese, Dutch, and they were very good businessmen, good professionals. They left the country, and they resided, Australia, Canada, or New Zealand, now they are heavily, they are second generation heavily contributed to their development, but we could not get their support, because we, due to our politicians, short sight thinking, they left. And again, in 1983, you can see most of our Hindu people, Tamil people, good businessmen, now they are doing a very good business in other countries, especially if you go to UK, Malaysia, and things like, Islam community left. If you get to Malaysia, most of the good business owned by actually they're coming from the Sri Lankan immigrants, that way, most of the people now finally you can say that, our people are now leaving, single Buddhists are now leaving by saying that no future in the country, that means that the skilled labor migration is a main problem. Sri Lanka going to go serious problem soon, because most of our university professors, lecturers, doctors and, accountant, you name IT guys, everybody in the queue to leave the country, then maybe in the next 2-3 years, we are going to face a huge problem, professionals lack and, country sometimes you may don't have professionals to do any job in country, that can happen. I know that as a dean, I have to write maybe at least for week 5-6 referees reports to the good people to leave the country, because whether they like or not, normally asking from the dean, recommendation letters. Then we know the good people, good lecturers and, good of our students, most of our past students, they are on the, move to the leave the country, then it's still labor immigration. When we can think about maybe we can't never develop, we never get economic growth because all the good people are leaving now because they feel that no future, that may be good research topic to see that, then you can see factors for economic growth. I mainly got from the textbooks. You can add as much as, sometimes some people may be not happy about the governance of the country. They are leaving good governance, bad governance, they are leaving the country, these factors interlinked to other, bad governance, call the skilled people to migrate, they are going there. And the progressive thinking not available, then the people's behavior and, that way, people don't like to stay in the country where the bad people are there, Then think about, if we don't have these things, from capital accumulation, whatever means we have to increase the savings, and whatever we save, we have to put into the right tracks, and technical progress or total factor productivity, we have to heavily invest on the science and technology, STM education, but that is not happening. And the natural resources, whatever available, we have to put a more value additions to country, but that also not happening. We have, we have around surrounding Sri Lanka sea, we want to develop a country, you can develop out of the sea, we have phosphate and, A lot of minerals we have, we have gems, and they have so many, craftsmen, and but we were not using these things, human capital, our people are very skillful. Whenever they go to abroad, you can see how they contribute, once they are here, they don't do, because the people are not taking their, skills for the system. And that way, I just put a few, but you can add as much as why we can't get our development. If we want to get economic growth, these factors should be correct. And the other macro topic, you have aggregate demand and supply, we can't cover everything. And unemployment and inflation is there. Basics in equilibriums in money and goods market, monetary and fiscal policy, behavioral foundation in macroeconomics, especially consumption behavior, savings behavior, investment behavior. A lot of equation we are analyzing that. International linkages, especially exchange rate and the balance of payment situation. Basics in money market operations, including interest rate. Basics in financial market and assets pricing. International adjustment and interdependence of macro variables. An overview of new macroeconomics, especially rational expectation, imperfect information, random walk of GDP, real business cycles. Then you can see these are the other macro topics. Today we covered actually the what we call the national income accounting framework. I think you may have a little idea about that. Then if anybody interests, you can go to the central bank website. You will see all these things, cbsl.government.lk. You have all the publications there. If anybody interests, they can read that one. The class group cases, right, towards the manufacturing sector development strategy, identify 10 key learning points. You read that one. Then if you want to develop your country, you should focus manufacturing sector development. That is a very sustainable block. Agriculture may be not that much sustainable, or service also may be not that much sustainable. Manufacturing is the right way to push economy to the next level. If you read that case bit, then you will understand that. Okay, now we can go to the second part of our lecture. The inflation and unemployment. This is the hot topics today. Can you see this slide? Hello? Can you see this slide?
Yes, sir.
We can see.
Inflation, all of you are hating and all of you are experiencing today, If you see any media, newspaper, or television channel, you will see things are going up, proper, like rockets prices up. Today, the milk powder and, everything with the even gas, things like, LP gas and, even the petrol and, all these things will go up because everything we import, Whenever you import, if you have a free floating system, that is natural. Then inflation is a rise in the average price of goods and services over time. Pure inflation means rise in prices of goods, services, and factors at the same rate over time. There are all things going with the same rate over time. There is what we call the pure inflation. Cost of inflation, we can analyze in terms of perfectly anticipated inflation. You adjust everything to minimize loss, especially indexation with wages and the loan contracts. And imperfectly anticipated inflation, hard to adjust for loss with accuracy. Therefore, extra risk has to be added. Then you have what we call the perfectly anticipated inflation. You can easily plan that one, but the dangerous one, imperfectly anticipated inflation, you never know it. And the indexation has many advantages and the disadvantages. The wage indexation, hard to adjust for shocks, always happening, and the complicated procedure adding more cost. Inflation become easier to live rather controlling with it. There are a lot of schools have a different interpretation regarding the inflation. You don't find any country with zero inflation. Then there should be inflation. Otherwise, there's no any motive to you to work hard, But the rate is a problem, If you have hyperinflation, country like Sri Lanka today, I think we are experiencing official inflation somewhere around 14 to 16, but unofficially, actually, the measurements we can't trust. It is over 20%. The independent, professionals report over 20%. So all this increase. Reasons for inflation, monetary reasons, more money in the systems due to the many activities. According to modern monetary theory, we assume that, to a certain extent, if you lock down or close your economic activities during the last 1-2 years, you can print money a little bit, We did that one, but we are heavily printing unnecessarily. Then the problem will come. Then the large amount of money is chasing a small amount of goods and services. Then naturally, according to supply demand, prices are going up. Now that is the thing what happening now in Sri Lanka, Even 2 days ago, also government heavily printed money. Then you can see monetary reason is the main reasons in many developing countries for inflation. The demand pull due to demand expansionary policies, especially tax cuts happening, then people have more money to spend and increase the government expenditure. Government giving more jobs and more projects and things like giving subsidies, transfers, increase in the government expenditure, interest rate reduction. Then the people don't want to save the money and they can borrow money and they can spend. And the consumer and the investor confidence increase, then people are spending money, investors are investing money, then sometimes economy can't absorb. Then you can see the demand pull due to the demand expansionary policies, we call that one. Imports-led inflation. Now what is happening in Sri Lanka, because most of the essential things we imported and we consume. Therefore, now dollar is not fixed, it is a floating. Then today I think 295. Then tomorrow it can be over 300. Then if you go today and ask for something and tomorrow go and ask the price, even the things didn't come, even though people change the prices here, and the wage and cost push, people are asking more wages, then the cost is going up, then again the prices are going up, they are again asking the wages, they never end in, spiral type of things, external or internal shocks due to that one. Then what happened in the Russian war and Ukraine and Russian war, due to that one, you can see the oil prices has gone up, again gone down, and the wheat prices going down, and there are even the gas prices going up and down, then you can see this external or maybe internal shocks inside the economy. Maybe that we now consider as internal shocks as the governance also, the heavy corruption we can consider as internal shocks, and the real sector weaknesses, whatever you give to the real sector to expand, real sector is not responding, they may have what we call the structural rigidness, but you give a farmer something, but farmers doesn't have that, that courage to do that work. The real sector is not responding rightly, and other factors like wrong policies, mismanagement of the economy. And Sri Lanka may be the best case to explain, whatever the loan we got and we didn't invest in rightly, some of our huge mega investment are complete failure, like a Lotus Tower. You can see how much money we have to pay back, it's a loan, but nothing generated. Hambantota Seaport, what happened? Matala Airport, what happened? And very many, the mega infrastructure which we developed, they are empty, no usage at all, in bad investment, then you can get a loan, if you invest rightly, you don't have any issues. But if you politically, propaganda projects end with this disaster, and the treating to these causes with proper policies, strategies, that means inflation can control. That's what IMF is coming and doing, IMF come and now the IMF said, look, you are in trouble, but whatever you do to build your reserves, it is going to be temporary things. You get neighbors or somebody's money and you eat it within next 2-3 months, you are again in the problem, Indian 1 billion within 3 months, we will, finish. Then after that, the finance minister say, no, don't think too much. Money will come, July we have to pay another $1 billion loan. And there are a lot of other sovereign bonds we have to pay, and Chinese loans are there, sometimes no one knows, they are both only bad. We need IMF proper supervision, control, Then that is why treating to these causes with proper policies, strategies, and means inflation or whatever you do, we can control, we can build our reserves, and the economy is again right track. And the wealth redistribution of inflation has a very many things to discuss, there are a lot of arguments, disagreement regarding that one. The wealth redistribution mainly harm for poor people, how they suffers due to inflation. Rich people have, their income, more wealth, also they have so many income sources, but poor only job or maybe sometimes government welfare. All the future gains and contracts will be affected. The present deals, which has a lifespan effect and affect the value of tax liabilities. A small amount of inflation work like lubricant for economy. There are a lot of arguments. It motivates everybody to be more active and hardworking. If there's no inflation, no one will do work hard, you do OT and, you do other jobs, informal sector work. Without cutting nominal wage, it helps to reduce real wage, which helps to reduce natural rate of unemployment. Political business cycle theory explain interaction between economic policy decision and political consideration, low unemployment and lesser inflation. But in practice, we can achieve both. Is a questions, because macro indicators are conflicting to each other. If you want to have a lesser inflation, you can't give a more job to the people. If you give a more job, then the inflation is going up. Because there are some points, tricky points, trade-off point we have to identify. However, politicians want to artificially manipulate these two, at least during the elections time in Sri Lanka. Also, you can see another provincial level election is coming, and government is now printing money and distributing to the regional political leaders, and then we can say temporarily they want to control inflation and giving more jobs. Even the 1,100,000 job initiative also. Then price indices in Sri Lanka, you can say we have a consumer price index. 40 we prepared it. Colombo working class price index. 40 we prepared it. State labor index number. Colombo consumer price index, that is a very famous one. Greater Colombo consumer price index. 89 we prepared. Colombo district consumer price index. Sri Lanka consumer price index. Wholesale price index. GDP deflated. CCPIN replacing that one. Then you can see that you see the central bank annual report 2012. They were very clearly explaining each and every of these things. In Sri Lanka, there are plenty of indicators available to measure the inflation, price increases. Then you can see this is from the central bank, your extra readings, movement of prices and the wages. Then you can see the volatile food categories and the other foods, the non-food categories. You can see food inflation is very high in Sri Lanka nowadays also. Essential goods are price rocketing. And the other one important is unemployment. The largest single cause of unemployment is loss of foregone production. If you don't work, if you don't get a job to work, then the labor output is going away. There's a loss of labor. The late Arthur Okun codified an empirical relations between unemployment and output over the business cycle. Then you can see Okun's laws state that one extra point of unemployment costs 2% of GDP. If your unemployment may be 8-9% means 9%, 18% of your GDP, you're costing for that one. And the cost of unemployment are grown very unevenly. There are large distributional consequences during the recession. Fresh job seekers, those who comes during recessions, has many problems. Nowadays, you can see the most of our public sector universities graduates are hired by the government. Now, government this year they don't hire. Then you can see these most of our graduates are mainly village level. The 40% or maybe 60% of our students are coming from the distribution, where the district quota. Then if they don't get a job, private sector, they don't welcome these public sector graduates. Then you can see nowadays we have serious problem. Yesterday also I met some of our engineering or IT faculty graduates. They say no, government is not hiring, therefore we don't have jobs. That way you can see we have serious issue with the distributional consequences of the unemployment. The cost of high inflation is easy to ascertain, but difficult in slow and moderate cases. Then the sacrifice ratio also. Then you can, in short run, government can reduce inflation only at the cost of increase unemployment and reduce output. Then you can see inflation and unemployment are related to each other. If you want to give more jobs, then you have to accept more inflation. If you reduce the jobs, then you have lesser inflation. Then that way you can see the sacrifice ratio is the percentage of output loss for each 1 point reduction in the inflation rate. Macro indicators are trade-off. Then you can see the change in unemployment rate and the growth rate of real GDP. There are a lot of Phillips curves available. The compositions of unemployment. This is a USA situation. Your main textbook says the 5 key characteristics of unemployment in USA. This may be common to Sri Lanka as well. There are large variation in employment rate across groups defined by age, race, and experience. In Sri Lanka, you can see most of the time the minority groups, Tamils and Islam people are facing more unemployment compared with the majority single Buddhist. You see the data, you will see that, age, race, experience. Because if you have experience, people, your unemployment possibilities are less. Fresh graduates always face this problem because they don't have experience. There's a high turnover in the labor market, flow into and out of the employment and unemployment are high relative to the number of employed or unemployed. The significant part of this turnover is cyclical. Layoff and separations are high during the recessions, and voluntary quits are high during the booms. Most people who become unemployed in any given month remain unemployed for only a short time. Most of the US unemployment consists of people who will be unemployed for quite a long time. If you have a job, you can easily find a job. If you don't have a job, very, very difficult to find. No one want to take you. Unemployment definitions, you get labor force. This comprises all those people holding a job or registered as being willing and available for work. And this is Sri Lankan definition. You can see that one. Unemployment rate, the percentage of labor force without a job but registered as being willing and available for work. And there are very many definitions with very many countries. Type of unemployment with reasons. You have frictional unemployment. You have a structural unemployment. You have demand deficient unemployment, you have classical unemployment, you have voluntary unemployment, you have involuntary unemployment. Then you can see there are various type of unemployment categories, and there are very many reasons for that one. If you can easily treat these reasons, then you can get back again as an employed person. The cost of unemployment, that's a very important loss of output, and loss of tax income and many other employment related positive impact, employed people are very happy, unemployed people are very unhappy, unhappiness create all the problems, it will end up with a social disharmony, suicide even, and if sometimes some of you maybe taste the unemployment, short term, then you will see even in family there's no place for you, no one is respecting, no one is recognizing you, the value for is a zero. If you're an unemployed person, a very harm to the poor, because poor doesn't have any income. And the public finance related and the tax increases for working people, unemployment more means those who work, they have to pay more taxes to finance their welfare, and the social problem of unemployment, such as crime, unrest, low morale, the recognition, and country's image, if unemployment is high, no country want to give a visa to that country citizens, they know they never come back. The economic refugees they are creating, therefore unemployment high countries, people don't want to even invest, because they know crime is very high, and that way even the law and order has a problem. Then you can see the wages regarding the public sector situations. Then the formal private sector real wages has gone down, and informal private sector, the government sector, public sector, they always increase wages without any reasons. And the extra readings you have prices and wages, the extra handouts. It is from the central bank. Then you can see the behavior of prices and wages in Sri Lanka, the various sectors, public sector, private sector, and that way. I think now we have 39 students, has gone up. Then today I gave some idea about what we call the National Income Accounting Framework, macroeconomy, inflation and unemployment. That's a basic idea, right? You read the central bank, the extra handouts which I gave, then you get the more idea about that national output, expenditure and income and the employment, that one. Then you will see that all the data available, and we have two small cases, that also from the central bank. I got it. Then the other one, the toward manufacturing sector development strategy. The people always assume that, if you want to develop your country, you have to put your money into the industry, not the agriculture, not the service, because the industry always create a very sustainable growth. It will spill over to the agriculture and even the service sector as well. As the data shows, now Sri Lankan GDP main contributor is a service sector. Agriculture is only 7%. But when it comes to the employed population, majority of the population employed in agriculture. Then the agriculture has a serious problem with the productivity. How can we improve the productivity and get back these people out of the agriculture and put into the industry and the service sector? That was a recommendation. Even the IMF is going to do the same recommendations. Right, I think we have covered enough for today. Anybody has a questions regarding anything on your assignments? So now we are in a more or less a macroeconomic area, microeconomics, production, cost, revenue, price fixing, demand, supply, consumer, producer behavior, all these things we covered, price in, price discrimination, and all these aspects we covered. Now we came to the macro. Today we gave us some idea about the national income accounting, inflation, unemployment, what actually mean a macroeconomics. Then as a manager, if you have some little idea, that's okay. Nowadays you are listening and you are reading all this macro things from your media, or maybe political parties, and even the television, and even newspapers, magazines. Everybody is asking what is going to happen to the Sri Lankan macro indicators, especially foreign reserves, inflation, unemployment, balance of payment, interest rate. So they are very tricky questions and different policy prescriptions. No agreement between the economists, and because they belong to various schools, various policy prescriptions given. Some maybe have a political motive also behind their prescriptions. Independent economists also maybe not 100% correct, no one knows what is going to happen for tomorrow, even though we have so many scientific tools to analyze tomorrow, forecasting, prediction, and, scenario building, we do everything. But even though no one knows what is going to happen to us, now we know next 2 months we may be safe because thanks to Indian 1 billion. But after 2 months later, what is going to happen? The $1 billion due loan available July, end of the July, we have to pay it. And Indian one also 3 years after, because they gave a 3-year grace period. We don't know, we didn't see the document. We don't know what is the conditions. But Indians, even as your political leaders were saying, Indian didn't put any conditions, no any security or nothing. I don't think so. Anybody is giving loan that way. Even your mother, father is giving loan, they will put a conditions, In that way, we'll see that, you're a scientist, you're a future of this country. We have to see what is going to happen to us. No one knows. Only things we can see, people are still in the queues, no essential goods, shortages, prices are rocketing, Right, anybody has a questions? Because we have to remove the political part of it, and, as a professional scientific way, we have to analyze, that is a university role, You're a scientist. You have to remove all these unnecessary complications, and scientifically you have to analyze and give a scientific policy prescriptions, especially macroeconomics, interest rate, balance of payments, unemployment, inflation, GDP growth, how to build. Now our main problem is in Sri Lanka, and everybody is talking about advising how can we build our foreign reserves. IMF issue a press release that is available, I will share with you if you want. They say that our debt situation is very unstable. Whatever you do to build your foreign reserves, that may not going to work because your very huge unsustainable debt situations. You have to pay it back. You borrow from the open market heavily. Whatever you borrowed, you badly invested. All these investments never give any rate of returns. Most, you can say that your Lotus Tower, how much cost, how much money we have to pay back, what they generate, nothing. You take what happened to Hambantota Seaport, what happened to Mattala, priority problems we have. Then now every sector, public sector, you start from the education sector, say no papers, universities, now there are a lot of problems. As a deans, we are struggling, so much. The government is asking, why did you pay your telephone bill? Why did you pay your electricity bill? Then fortunately, Moroto has some income, then we can manage it, I heard your NDT one, what we call the ITM, almost bankrupt because they don't generate any money. Government says we give money you to pay salary only, don't do anything. Then you can see that the education sector is a huge problem, even a school level, no even papers, to have exams. You go to hospitals, that also in real, issues. They say these contractors, those who give us some this, what we call the services, they were not paid. Especially the smaller scale, the restaurant and cafeterias, they say they can't operate. They almost closed down. Especially wage workers, now no one hiring. Recently we were doing some survey in Norelia, Valimata, that Borland area, to WHO with some survey. We found now no farm is hiring the daily wage workers. Earlier because they have fertilizer, pesticide, chemicals, they have, but now nothing there, then they don't hire anything. Then how can they survive? They mainly depend on the government welfare, whatever government give, fortunately the medicine they can get from the government hospitals, actually not medicine, only the consultation, and the government time to time give us some transfers. Then you can see the every sector you can analyze, we have problem, we can't say we have only dollar problems, we don't have any other problems, likewise politician says. These are macro indicators, we are discussing macroeconomics, now people are pricing, everywhere, not only political parties, even the independent groups are, citizens, nothing to do with the political parties. They organize themselves and they come and they protest. if anybody have a common sense, we can guess, what is going to happen to us within next 1-2 months, In 3 months, at least next 2 months, we can live without any problem because Indian 1 billion is there, You can consume that after that. These are macro problems, The bad macroeconomic management end up this way. Anybody has any questions? Anything to discuss? Any solutions to the macroeconomic issues in Sri Lanka? We have 39 people, except IMF, saying to go to the IMF and get their advice. Any other advice as a scientist, at a future generation of these nations? If we have maybe golden idea, we can convey to the government, because we have so many links with the government. Everybody is advising. Even India is saying that, we can give a short term 1 billion, but long term you have to go to the IMF and get their assistance. Then we also can help more. Because if you have IMF seals, the other countries like to come and help you, They like to come and give loans and, come and invest to your country, Nowadays, everybody know if you give money to Sri Lanka government, you can't never get it back, Credit worthiness zero, Even our tourism sector also now, and even the foreign, workers, remittances, everywhere you can see that we have ad hoc situations. Sometime maybe MBA class may have a solutions. You can come up with a 1 page because ministers and the secretaries don't read more than 1 page item wise. These are MBA class solutions to get back Sri Lanka economy to the right track. You can.
I think a good solution would be to replace the advisors with the ministers in the council.
Yeah, that political solution, but they don't want that one from us.
Yeah.
They never want that one. Yeah, that is not going to happen. Anyway, we need a more realistic suggestions. Changing even the political leaders. I don't think so. Problem already, overtaken by us. Whoever come to power, they can't solve this problem in short term. Even if you go to IMF, it takes 8 months to negotiate and to get the money to our table. Then, as a scientist, as a people who can think, we know we are not in a very safe situation. Then anybody has any golden idea? Rather not to say the government to resign, no change, they never want to listen. It will boomerang to us. Any other SME sector almost collapse, small and medium scale industries, especially, even now we want to bring undergraduates to the university, but the problem is now no oil for a public transport is not working, no, the electricity problem is there, even no gas, therefore rice packet and these things may be not going to operate, Then we have serious issues there, Even there's no gas and maybe. Yes. Anybody has
just an idea?
Yeah.
I remember how well the barter agreement between Sri Lanka and China worked in the late 50s and 60s for rice and rubber. Is it not possible to establish something similar maybe with Russia, since they have a currency crisis also, tea in exchange of crude oil?
Yeah, even Russia agreed to give oil to us because we didn't oppose for Russian invasion of the Ukraine. We didn't even go to the UN meeting. We were helping Russia. Russia agreed to give us, But these are temporary things, But not only Russia, we have to see the other countries may be opposed with us. Russia give oil to us, but maybe other countries may not give anything to us. The danger is there,
My point is it not possible to establish barter agreements?
Barter agreements also. It's happening nowadays. It's happening with India. It's happening under the subtrade. It's happening with the China. It's happening. That is not the scale is not happening. We don't have that much production. That is a problem. Barter is happening. Now we want to avoid the dollars and do the like Indian case. Indian one, there's no pressure for dollars. Whatever Indian gives, we have to import from India. Indian currency and the most of our food stuff, and medicine and a lot of things we import from the India, the 1 billion may not going to give that much pressure on the dollar. Next 3 years, we don't want to pay back till next 3 years, grace period is a very heavy. Then that's the thing government is now trying, going to the neighboring countries and asking with the long grace period and there's no pressure. We can't use that money for an international market. Only that country we can buy things. That's in a way it's a barter system, you know. Yeah, we have money to buy, but barter also another one. But the scale is a problem, you know. Government is at the moment we are trying it, you know. We give tea and we get a rice from somewhere. Yeah, there's a one way going for an old system. And what about our side? Energy problem. Waste energy, you know, at our homes, you know. People should take the crisis, you know. We are not serious about that one, you know. Most of the time, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, we use energy to watch the Indian teledramas, yeah. So for us, then we can have one-time news. Only 4 o'clock news, that's it. Night, no news. That way we have to take the peak load, we can get into the, you know, the energy curve, you know, 6 to 10 o'clock, we have problem, you know. And alternative energies, you know, like the solar, we not connected to the main grid and things like, you know. Inside also we can do a lot, you know. People should take serious, you know, government should be very, you know, genuine about, they have to say the real situation of the country, you know. People may be scaring of it, you know. Otherwise, like the oil minister, no queues, but, you know, queues are everywhere in petrol city, you know. That way. Right, that also good idea, you know, barter system going, but not solutions to all the problems, but certain problems we can solve, you know, especially agriculture-based product we can give and take some. The main problem come with oil, you know, we need a oil, gas, what we need, wheat flour and the cement and things like, you know, essential goods with the barter system. But sometimes maybe Sri Lankan citizens, those who are in abroad, they also hate into country, you know, they don't want to send the money, you know. If you get Italy people, Japan people, Korean people, Middle East people, they get together and they only send the money to spend their parents' expenditure only. They don't want to send all the money, you know. We need a citizens, you know, who can help to us, you know. Some people say government is corruptive, therefore we don't want to send the money, you know. Anyway, we are in ad hoc situations, you know, we can only as a normal citizens, we can wait and see, you know. Tomorrow we also have to go to the queue, you know. If we don't get a fuel, you have to go to petrol queue 2 to 3 days, some are there, you know. Gas queue, you know, maybe petrol queue and maybe milk powder queue, you know. Think about, you know, macro indicators are a real problem in Sri Lanka now. Maybe not only these regimes, but everybody should responsible. In the last 74 years who ruled this country and especially government officers, you know. Even the central bank former governor, you know, W.D. Lakshman, he should figure out it, you know. His academics and, you know, this problem can come, you know, 2 years time. Other guy who is a Gunaru one, he stopped all the foreign projects, you know, because he's not an economist, he doesn't have an economist degree even. But he just stopped all the foreign projects. Even we work with what we call the Kalani Valley Railway and, you know, Colombo Suburban Railway. He stopped all these foreign projects. Otherwise, some foreign money comes here, you know, then we could settle it, you know. Over 120 foreign projects he stopped. Because the Gotabaya's main economic advisor, and there's another one, Ranavira, you know. We were working with very many big projects. Every projects they stop, foreign projects. And even this Colombo Light Railway project and things like, you know. Right, okay, then you can see that we are in a very burning real situation. Fortunately, our neighbor helped. Let's see, you know, how they are going to utilize this money, you know. Our festive season also coming, you know. April, New Year is coming. People are heavily consuming during that time, you know. Let's see what is going to happen. We'll discuss maybe next week also some other macro indicators like foreign direct investment and the multinational cooperation and the development cooperation. That also more or less related with this one. Right, anybody has any other questions? I think all of you are working on the assignments, you know, individual assignments, group assignments, even individual assignments. If you find something in singular, you can write it, you know, like a elephant chasing away mantra, you know, that also good to document, you know, if you know it, you know. In sometime village level, you can see the paddy cultivation, Instead of using the pesticide, they say mantra. It works. That is a traditional knowledge, you know. That also part of the your individual assignments, you know. Mantra Guru Kamo something, you know, it's a part of the what we call the not the technovia, human infovia part, you know. Technology has so many components. Because that is maybe 1-2 pages one. Right. Then regarding your the group assignment, you can read the United Nations technological report, you know. If you can't find, I can give that one. I can upload that one. The latest United Nations technology report. That report mainly discuss about the frontier and the emerging technologies. It's a huge book. We have all these frontiers and emerging new technologies and their impact for various sectors. Everything. If you can find it, you can go to the Google and, you know, just type it, you know. Otherwise, I can give that one to you. Let me see that. I have that one. No, I can't find it. But anyway, you go to the Google and just type it. Then you will see that United Nations technology report. I think UNCTAD or somebody prepared that technology report, very clearly explained how the frontiers and emerging technology can change the various sectors in the economy. You know, you can apply to Sri Lankan situation only. I saw there are nice diagrams are there. Right. I think we have discussed enough. If anybody has any questions, any suggestions. So today is a 9th session. We have only 14 session. The microeconomics we covered. Now we are entering the macro. In another 2-3 lectures, we will cover the important macro areas. And after that, we can go for your presentation. 2 sessions there are to final session. We can do the as revisions, you know. Right. Seems like no one has any questions. Anybody has any questions, you can raise. Otherwise, we'll wind up the session, you know. You have more time, then you can, as a group, you can do your case studies. In here, you know, whenever we meet in person also, we do the 1.5 hours, we do lectures. There are another 1.5 hours, we do cases, and, you know, sometimes as groups, we allow you to go out the classroom environment and natural environment, or library, or maybe canteen, no, you know, as a group, you can work, you know, we are changing the atmosphere, you know, environment, then you learn more, you know, come in and presenting, discussing, arguing. Right, then we will conclude the today's session. Anybody has anything to ask? Right, we are recording this one, and if, today is a very lesser number of students. Right, okay.